Imagine a fire so vast, so hungry, that it feeds on a palace for 3 entire months without ceasing. This was not a natural disaster. This was the funeral pyre of the Qin Dynasty. In the year 206 BCE, the magnificent Yipeng Palace, a structure built to intimidate the gods themselves, was reduced to charcoal and dust. The smoke from that fire choked the skies of Xianyang, signaling the end of the First Empire. Qin Shi Huang, the man who dreamed of ruling for 10,000 generations, managed to hold on to power for barely 15 years. His empire was a masterpiece of engineering, but a disaster of sociology. He built the Great Wall to keep the barbarians out, but he forgot to build a door to let the people breathe. The philosophy of legalism that the Qin worshipped was like a rod of cast iron. It was incredibly strong, capable of crushing anything in its path. But as any blacksmith will tell you, iron that is too hard becomes brittle. It does not bend, it does not flex. And when the pressure becomes too great, it does not crack gracefully. It shatters into a million jagged pieces. The Qin did not fall. They exploded. From the smoking ruins of this totalitarian nightmare, a vacuum of power emerged that was terrifying in its absolute silence. The old world was dead, and the new world was up for grabs. History usually tells us that in times of chaos, we need a hero, a man of noble birth, trained in the arts of war, possessing honor and dignity. We had that man. His name was Xiang Yu. He was the warlord of Western Chu, a tragic figure carved from the same marble as Achilles. He was a god of war who could crush mountains with his bare hands. By all laws of logic, the throne belonged to him. But fate plays a wicked game of shadows. It did not choose the hero, it chose the antithesis. Enter Liu Bang, a peasant, a village drunkard, a man who, by his own admission, liked women and wine more than he liked responsibility. A man who once urinated into the hat of a scholar just to show how little he cared for intellectualism. If Xiang Yu was a tiger, majestic and terrifying, Liu Bang was a cockroach, ugly, resilient, and impossible to kill. And yet, look at the map of East Asia today. We do not speak of the Qin people. We do not speak of the Chu people. We speak of the Han, the largest ethnic group on the face of this planet. Over 1 billion souls name themselves after the dynasty founded by this very peasant. Why? How does a scoundrel defeat a superhero and forge an identity that outlasts Rome? Welcome to the Han Dynasty. This is not a story of virtuous kings and loyal subjects. This is the story of how the first enduring empire was forged in flames, deceit, and the blood of those who refused to bend. In the year 210 BCE, the man who claimed to be immortal died on a road trip. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, perished in the sweltering heat of summer. Yet, the opening chapter of this imperial tragedy reveals a profound mockery of mortal power. The emperor's passing was hidden from the world. His advisors, terrified of the chaos that would ensue, hid his decomposing body in a carriage filled with rotting fish to mask the smell of the putrefying Son of Heaven. The most powerful man on earth left this world disguised as a mobile fish market. It was a fitting metaphor for what was to come, something that looked like an empire on the outside, but was rotting from the inside out. When the news finally broke, the illusion of order evaporated instantly. The Qin dynasty had built its foundation on fear. They believed that if you punished people severely enough, they would never dare to rebel. But they forgot the mathematics of desperation. If the penalty for littering is death, and the penalty for murder is death, and the penalty for being late to work is death, then you have inadvertently removed the incentive to be a law-abiding citizen. When death is the only menu item, you might as well order the lobster. The spark that burned the empire down did not come from a rival king or a dissatisfied general. It came from the mud, specifically the mud of Dazexiang. 900 peasants were being marched to a border garrison. It was raining, not a drizzle, but a deluge that turned the roads into rivers of sludge. The Qin law was absolute: arrive on time or be executed. The rain made it physically impossible to arrive on time. Two minor officers, Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, looked at the rain, looked at the calendar, and realized they were already dead men walking. So, they made a simple calculation. If we go, we die. If we run, we die. If we rebel, we might die, but we might also carve our names into eternity. Chen Sheng stood atop a mound of earth and shouted the question that would echo through 2,000 years of Chinese history. Are kings and generals born with noble blood? It was a rhetorical question, and the answer was a resounding no. They raised their flags, which were nothing more than bamboo poles with rags tied to them, and the empire exploded. This was not a glorious revolution. This was a prison riot on a continental scale. The pent-up rage of millions of people who had been worked to the bone building the Great Wall and the Emperor's tomb was unleashed. They didn't just kill officials, they tore them apart. The highly efficient bureaucracy of the Qin, which had tracked every grain of rice and every household, collapsed overnight because the people realizing the paperwork simply did not matter when you had a pitchfork. But chaos loves company. As the peasants rioted, the ghosts of the past woke up. The 6 states, Han, Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, and Qi, which Qin Shi Huang had crushed into dust, suddenly began to reform. It was like watching a zombie movie where the undead are nations. Descendants of the old royal families who had been hiding in caves or living as commoners suddenly dug up their ancestors' banners. They dusted off their rusty swords and declared their independence. This was not a liberation. This was the disintegration of a unified world back into the bloody warring states era. The map of China shattered like a dropped porcelain vase. Every local strongman with a sword and a few hundred followers declared himself a king or a duke. For the common people, this was hell on earth. The Pax Sinica, the peace of China, was replaced by the law of the jungle. The textbooks tell us about battles and strategies, but they rarely describe the smell of the air. It smelled of smoke and copper. With no central government to maintain the dikes, the Yellow River flooded. With farmers drafted into makeshift armies, the fields went fallow. Famine followed war like a shadow. Historical records from this period use a phrase that chills the blood. People ate one another. This was not metaphorical. In the desperate hunger of the power vacuum, humanity was stripped away, leaving only the primal instinct to survive. The legal codes of Qin, which could tell you exactly how many times you could whip a wife for disobedience, were replaced by a simpler code. The strong eat, the weak are meat. Banditry became a legitimate career path. If you had a horse, you were a knight. If you had a castle, you were a lord. If you had nothing, you were a victim. In this chaotic arena, where the old nobility was trying to reclaim their past glory, and the angry peasants were trying to burn everything to the ground, the stage was set. The world was waiting for someone who could bridge the gap between the chaotic rage of the rebellion and the structured order of an empire. But for now, darkness reigned. The dragon was dead, and the parasites were feasting on the carcass. History is often described as a chess match, but the contest between Xiang Yu and Liu Bang was not chess. It was a collision between two different species, two different philosophies of existence. On one side, you had the apex predator of the old world. On the other, the ultimate survivor of the new one. Let us look at Xiang Yu first. If you were casting a movie about a god of war, you would cast him. He was a nobleman from the fallen state of Chu, standing over 6 feet tall, with a voice that could allegedly shatter glass and eyes that possessed double pupils, a mythical sign of a king. He was the kind of man who didn't just win battles. He personally crushed skulls. He was a Greek tragedy hero born in the wrong continent. He possessed what the Chinese call Ba Shan Qi, the strength to pull up mountains by their roots. But Xiang Yu had a fatal flaw. He was a sociopath with a code of honor. He believed in the aristocracy of blood. He was the star quarterback of history who peaked in high school. His solution to every problem was violence. When the surrendered army of Qin, 200,000 men, became a logistical burden, Xiang Yu did not imprison them. He did not integrate them. He buried them alive. Imagine the sound of 200,000 men screaming as the earth covered their faces. That was the sound of Xiang Yu's mercy. He was terrifying, magnificent, and politically illiterate. He treated his subordinates like servants. If you gave him a good idea, he would nod. If you gave him a bad idea, he would boil you. He was the worst human resources manager in history. He only trusted people with the surname Xiang. To him, the empire was family property, and everyone else was just trespassing. Now, look at his opponent, Liu Bang. If Xiang Yu was a lion, Liu Bang was a golden retriever that had learned how to pick pockets. Liu Bang was 40 years old when the rebellion started. In ancient China, 40 was basically a corpse. He had accomplished absolutely nothing. He was a minor local official, a Tingjiang, which is a fancy title for a sheriff of a tiny village. His resume was blank. His hobbies included getting drunk on credit, chasing women, and avoiding hard labor. His father called him a loser. His wife constantly had to bail him out of trouble. He had no noble blood, no martial arts skills, and he was terrified of dying. So, how did this middle-aged alcoholic peasant defeat the god of war? Liu Bang had a superpower that no one saw coming: emotional intelligence. He was the first master of the art of not giving a damn about face. While Xiang Yu was busy polishing his armor and counting his ancestors, Liu Bang was busy making friends. He knew he was stupid. He admitted it freely. And that was his genius. Because he knew he was not the smartest person in the room, he went out and hired the smartest people in the room. When a brilliant strategist named Zhang Liang spoke, Liu Bang actually listened, even if he didn't understand the math. When a logistical genius named Xiao He told him how to manage grain, Liu Bang let him handle the checkbook. And when Han Xin, a man who had crawled between a thug's legs to avoid a fight, asked to lead the army, Liu Bang gave him the seal of the commander-in-chief. Xiang Yu looked at a talented man and saw a threat to his ego. Liu Bang looked at a talented man and saw a tool to do the work he was too lazy to do himself. There is a famous story where Liu Bang asked his general why he, a man who couldn't even ride a horse properly, was the emperor. The general replied, "Xiang Yu is kind and respectful to people's faces, but when it comes time to reward them with titles and land, he clutches the official seal so tight that the corners wear down in his hands. You, my lord, are rude and vulgar, but when someone captures a city, you give them the city." In the end, it was a battle between a micromanager and a master delegator. Xiang Yu wanted to be the hero of the story. Liu Bang just wanted to be the producer who collects the check at the box office. And as history shows, the producer always wins. If the rivalry between Liu Bang and Xiang Yu were a movie, the feast at Hong Gate would be the scene where the audience holds their breath until they turn blue. It is widely considered the most famous dinner party in Chinese history, not because of the food, but because murder was the main course. Liu Bang had beaten Xiang Yu to the Qin capital, essentially stealing the prize. Xiang Yu was furious. He had 400,000 men. Liu Bang had 100,000. The math was simple: annihilation. But instead of attacking, Xiang Yu invited Liu Bang to dinner. This was not a social call, it was a psychological torture chamber. The advisor, Fan Zheng, had ordered a sword dance, a form of entertainment where an assassin twirls a blade inches from the guest's nose, waiting for a signal to strike. Liu Bang sat there, sweating, drinking, and apologizing profusely. He played the role of the submissive servant so perfectly that Xiang Yu's ego was stroked to the point of intoxication. Xiang Yu looked at this pathetic, groveling man and thought, "He is too weak to be a threat." When the sword dancer got too close, Liu Bang's bodyguard, Fan Kuai, crashed the party, eating raw pork and staring down the warlord. In the confusion, Liu Bang pulled the oldest trick in the book. He asked to go to the bathroom, and he never came back. He fled over the mountains, leaving his dignity behind to save his neck. This moment defined the war. Xiang Yu chose pride. Liu Bang chose survival. But survival was not enough. To win, Liu Bang needed a weapon. That weapon was Han Xin. Han Xin is the ultimate underdog story. Before he was a general, he was a nobody who carried a sword. A local butcher once mocked him, saying, "If you are brave, kill me. If you are a coward, crawl between my legs." In front of a crowd, Han Xin crawled through the butcher's groin. The world laughed. But Han Xin knew something they didn't. Dying in a street fight is stupid. Dying for an empire is glory. When Liu Bang finally gave him command, Han Xin unleashed a style of warfare that broke every rule in the book. First, the deception. He ordered his men to visibly repair the burned gallery roads, a massive engineering project that would take years. Xiang Yu laughed, thinking the Han army was stuck. Meanwhile, Han Xin marched his main force through a secret mountain pass at Chenkang, appearing in the enemy's backyard like a ghost. Then came the Battle of Jingxing. Han Xin did the unthinkable. He deployed his army with their backs to a raging river. In military strategy, this is suicide. You always leave an escape route so your soldiers don't panic. But Han Xin understood the psychology of fear. He told his men, "There is no road back. You fight or you drown." Faced with certain death, his soldiers fought like demons, annihilating an army 10 times their size. This was the back to the river formation, a gamble that only a mad genius would take. By the year 202 BCE, the tables had turned. The hunter became the hunted. Xiang Yu was pushed back to Gaixia, a canyon of death. The end of the Chu-Han Contention is not a battle. It is an opera written in blood. Xiang Yu's army was surrounded, starving, and freezing. In the dead of night, Han Xin ordered his soldiers, many of whom were captured Chu men, to sing the folk songs of Chu. Imagine the horror, darkness, cold wind, and suddenly, from all 4 sides, the familiar melodies of home drift through the air. 4 sides Chu songs. Xiang Yu heard it, and his spirit shattered. He thought, "Have the Han conquered all of Chu? Why are there so many of my people in their camp?" It was the most effective psychological warfare in ancient history. The invincible warlord was not defeated by swords, but by nostalgia. Inside his tent, Xiang Yu drank his last cup of wine with his beloved consort Yu. She danced for him one last time, with tears in her eyes, before seizing his sword and slitting her own throat to free him from the burden of protecting her. It was a scene of heartbreaking beauty amidst absolute carnage. Xiang Yu mounted his horse and broke through the encirclement with only 28 riders left. He reached the Wujiang River. The boatman offered to ferry him to safety, back to his homeland where he could rebuild. But Xiang Yu looked at the river, then at his pursuers. He smiled a bitter smile. "I crossed this river with 8,000 young men," he said. "Not one has returned. How can I face their fathers?" He turned his horse around. He did not run. He charged. Alone, he killed hundreds more before slitting his own throat. As his massive body hit the ground, the Han soldiers, men who had feared him like a god moments ago, swarmed his corpse, tearing him limb from limb to claim a piece of the bounty. The god of war was gone, dismembered by the greed of the new world. The era of heroes ended. The era of politicians had begun. In the year 202 BCE, Liu Bang sat on the dragon throne. He was no longer the village sheriff. He was now Emperor Gaozu of Han. But sitting on the throne is much harder than winning it. He faced a massive constitutional crisis. The Qin Dynasty had failed because it was too centralized. It tried to strangle the world with a single pair of hands. The Zhou dynasty before it had failed because it was too loose. It let the feudal lords do whatever they wanted until they ate the king. So, Liu Bang, in his street-smart wisdom, decided to create a hybrid monster. He adopted the centralized bureaucracy of the Qin for the western half of the empire, which he controlled directly. But for the eastern half, the vast lands he had just conquered, he had to pay his debts. He couldn't pay his generals with cash. He didn't have enough. So, he paid them with nations. He carved up the east and gave it to his brothers-in-arms. Han Xin, Peng Yu, and Yingbu, they became kings. It seemed like a fair deal, a franchise model of empire. But there is a fundamental rule in the physics of power. Two suns cannot shine in the same sky. As the celebrations faded and the hangovers set in, Liu Bang looked at his map. He saw that his brothers controlled more land and more soldiers than he did. Han Xin was a military god. Peng Yu was a master of guerrilla warfare. Yingbu was a fierce warrior. Liu Bang was old, tired, and his designated heir was a soft-hearted boy. He realized that the very dogs he had used to hunt down the tiger of Chu were now wolves sleeping in his living room. And so began the most brutal corporate restructuring in Chinese history. The first target was the biggest, Han Xin. Liu Bang didn't attack him. He couldn't beat Han Xin in a fair fight. Instead, he used rumors. He accused Han Xin of treason, arrested him, and stripped him of his military command, downgrading him from a king to a marquis. He kept Han Xin under house arrest in the capital, like a tiger in a cage. But a tiger in a cage is still a tiger. While Liu Bang was away suppressing a minor rebellion, his wife, Empress Liu, a woman who makes Lady Macbeth look like a kindergarten teacher, decided to finish the job. She couldn't execute Han Xin publicly because Liu Bang had once promised him the 3 no's. Han Xin would not die by weapons of iron, he would not die facing the sky, and he would not die touching the ground. Empress Liu was a lawyer at heart. She found the loophole. She lured Han Xin into the bell tower of the palace. She ordered the floor to be covered in thick rugs so he wouldn't touch the ground. She ordered the windows to be blackened so he wouldn't see the sky. And instead of iron swords, she had her maidservants sharpen bamboo stakes. In the darkness, the genius who defined the art of war was poked to death by a dozen women with sharpened sticks, a humiliating end for a god of war. But if Han Xin's death was tragic, Peng Yue's death was a horror movie. Peng Yue was accused of rebellion simply because he claimed he was too sick to join the emperor on a campaign. Liu Bang exiled him. On the road to exile, Peng Yue met Empress Liu. He begged her for mercy, asking to return to his hometown as a commoner. The empress smiled, invited him into her carriage, and brought him back to the capital. She told Liu Bang, "Exiling a tiger creates future trouble." So, she ordered Peng Yu to be executed. But that wasn't enough. To send a message to the other kings, she had Peng Yue's body minced into a meat paste, pickled, and packed into jars. She then mailed these jars of human condiment to the other vassal kings as a gift. Imagine receiving a package from the emperor, opening it, and realizing the meat sauce inside is your old colleague, Bob. When Yingbu, the king of Huainan, received his jar of Peng Yue, he threw up. Then, he panicked. He realized the pattern. The hunt was over, and the hounds were being cooked. He rebelled immediately, not because he wanted to, but because he knew he was next on the menu. Liu Bang, old and sick, had to drag himself out of bed to crush Yingbu. He won, but he took an arrow wound that would eventually kill him. Before he died, Han Xin uttered the famous last words that define this era. "When the cunning rabbit is dead, the good dog is boiled. When the high-flying birds are gone, the good bough is put away. The enemy is destroyed, so the generals must die." Liu Bang's purge was cold, bloody, and devoid of honor, but from a historical perspective it was necessary. By removing these military giants, he ensured that the Han Dynasty would not fragment back into civil war. He replaced these kings with his own sons and brothers. He turned the empire from a partnership into a family business. He taught future emperors a dark lesson. Gratitude is a luxury. Survival is a necessity. So, Liu Bang successfully cleared the board. He cooked the hounds, broke the bows, and secured his empire. But let me ask you this. If you spent your entire life watching your back against military geniuses, would you remember to look at the person sleeping right next to you? Liu Bang slaughtered his brothers in arms to protect his throne. Yet he missed one fatal detail. The apex predator of the Han Dynasty wasn't on the battlefield. She was sharing his bed. As the emperor takes his final, agonizing breath, the true architect of the Han's most terrifying chapter finally steps out of the shadows. What happens when a woman, stripped of legitimate power, must use absolute ruthlessness to survive? In our next video, we will descend into Empress Liu's chilling reign of terror and discover how a paradoxically lazy era of governance that followed actually birthed unprecedented wealth for the empire. So, who do you think was the true mastermind of the early Han? The street-smart Liu Bang or the cold-blooded Empress Liu? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Dynast Saga so you won't miss the darkest, bloodiest power grab in Imperial history. See you in the next chapter.